Welcome to Learning with Kamal. In today's session, we are going to learn about some of the machine learning basics and libraries which we have within Python that we generally use for any machine learning programming and in our code which we come across. Yep. So how we use them and what are the basic things about that. So let's go about it. So two basic libraries that we generally use is NumPy and Pandas. So what is NumPy? NumPy is a Python library for creating and manipulating vectors and matrices. What is a vector? Vector is nothing but a list of number, say 1, 2, 3. It can be either a row or a column. Yeah. And what is a matrix? Matrix is an array of numbers. So it can have one or more rows or one or more columns, as we have stated in the example out here. Now we look at how we use this NumPy within the code. So I will give you a quick walkthrough of the code, some sample codes which you have written and the basic operations that we use using that library. So I'll give a quick walkthrough of the code. So for that I'll go to the sample code which we have in Google Colab. Okay. So this is the sample code which we have in Google Colab. Here you go. So if you want to use NumPy in your Python code, the first thing which you need to do is import that. So that is done by say import NumPy as whatever you wanted. So here I have stated is as np. Now let's see what all we can do with that particular API. It's NumPy. Okay, so we can create say a one-dimensional array. So how we do that? We just say that np.array and give the list of numbers. So here we are creating a single dimension array. So we just give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and we are given the decimal numbers and a mix of integers and floats. Yeah. And then to see whether that array is created, we just say print and it will give us an output. This is the output. So this is what the array looks like. Yeah. We can also use it to create a two-dimensional array. So while creating a two-dimensional array, we say np.array and we give two numbers with comma in box brackets, square brackets like this. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. And now we go and print this two-dimensional array and this is how the array looks like. Yep. So this is how we create a two-dimensional array. Now if certain other uses which we do of NumPy is, it can give us a sequence of numbers. So for giving that, the code that we use is we say np.arrange 1 to 11. So it will give you numbers between 1 and 11. So it's starting with 1 up to 10. And see, this is the output which we got out of this. Yeah. So we say print and it prints out that for us. Okay. Now we can use also populate random numbers. So random numbers is we can have random integers. So we give here between 10 and 100 we want. So we say random integers. Low is 10 and high is 101. Yeah. And size is 6 because we just want 6 numbers. So this is how we can create an array with random numbers. Similarly, we can do random floating values. So random floating values, what we do is np.random. So earlier what we did was random int. Here we do random and it will give us the 6 random numbers in the array. We can also do mathematical operations using this. Now we have created the random floats between 2 and 3. So we want the random floats between 2 and 3. So what we do is take the earlier array random float 0, 1 and we just add 2 to it. So this is the mathematical operations which we have done on our NumPy array. And we print it and we can see 2 gets added to all the random numbers which we had earlier. Yeah. Now to more practical kind of an example which we generally use, like for doing all our exercises, if we don't have a data set, we just want to try out something, we can even create a data set. A data set is basically an array of records. So that is how we can use NumPy to create data sets and use for our trial code or Python or trial logic which you want to use with small number of records, small number of features and labels. Yeah. So I've just given it as name as features and I can say np.arrange 6 to 21. So it will give me all the numbers starting from 6 up to 20. And label, I have used the same formula y is equal to mx plus c. So feature into M is 3 and C is 4. So these are the value of labels, and I have just printed both features and labels, and you can see these are the values within that array. We can also use NumPy to add some noise. So what is noise? Noise is the imperfect data which we have within our sample code, or within our examples as we call it in the ML terminology. Now to do that, what I can do is np.random I can use, and it will just give me some random numbers, and I'll add that to the labels as a noise. So see, this is what it does. Yeah. So these are some basic operations we use while doing some machine language programming, and there are a lot more to it, but this is like a brief crash course for you. Yeah. Similarly, now we will look at other library which is known as pandas data frame. So what are data frames? Data frames are nothing but data structures in pandas API. Yeah. So in pandas API there is something called data frame, and which are nothing but data structures. So I'll show you that in how to use pandas data frame in code. In order to use the pandas library, what you need to do first is import pandas and say as PD. So you create an instance of pandas library. Now create and populate a NumPy array. So I'm just creating a NumPy array which we did earlier, and then assign it to a data frame. So I just create a NumPy array. This is a 2-dimensional array, and I create one more array which has 2 values saying that temperature and activity. So this first array we'll use to capture the values, and the second array which we have created as the column names. Now what we do is we want to assign this to a data frame. So I say pd.data frame, and data within my data frame is going to be my data, which is nothing but this NumPy array, 2-dimensional array which we have created. And what are the names of those columns? So I say column names, temperature and activity, which I have defined here above. Now now this becomes my data frame, my underscore data frame. Now if we go and print it, say print my underscore data frame, will print the contents of that data frame, and this is how it looks like. So if you see, it has added an index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it has added the 2 columns which are there in our 2-dimensional array, and it has given the column names as temperature and activity, which was part of this array where we had 2 names suggested, 2 entries, temperature and activity. So now your data frame is created like this. Yep. Now if you want to add an column to this data frame, so what we do to add an column is I just go and say my data frame adjusted. So this is I put a new column name, like if you see earlier it was temperature and activity. So I have given this new column name adjusted, and what should be the value of that column? Values in that column is my data frame into my data frame. So I'm selecting all the values in this column activity plus 2. Yeah. Now if I go and print my data frame, I'll see there is a column added with column name called adjusted, and the values in that column are all activity plus 2, activity plus 2. So now a new column has been added to my data frame. Yep. So this is one of the use which we can do of data frames. Another use we make of data frames is how to get a subset of a data frame. Like if you have say 10 features within your data set, but you need to use only 3. Yeah. So that is where you will use subset of data frame. Now I'll go and say print data frame I want. So we are going to select 0, 1 and 2 rows from the data frame. So what I go and do, my data frame dot head, and I say 3. So it will take the first 3 rows of my data frame, which would be 0, 1 and 2, and print it out. So if you can see the results out here, it has printed first 3 rows of my data frame 0, 1 and 2, and it just showed the value. So how we do is by data frame dot head in bracket the number of rows which you want. Yeah. So 3 we have set, so it printed 3 rows. Next, now if you want to print only a one particular row from our data frame, so how do we do that? We say my data frame dot iloc, and we within square bracket we give the index of that row. So we say here 2. So if you see, it is just printed one particular row which has index value of 2. So it prints that particular row. Yeah. Now if you want to print a range of rows, like starting from this to this, then how do we do that? We just say my data frame in bracket the starting row and up to which row. So here we have given 1 to 4. So it will leave out the row with index 0, so, and it will print rest from 1 to 3. As you see, this is the output of that. Yeah. Now if we just want a single column of the data frame, so how do we do that? We just say print my data frame and we give the column name, and it will just print that particular column of the data frame. So this is how you can get subset of whatever data frame you have defined. So in this exercise we have just walked you through of how to use data frame and NumPy, because these are the two APIs which will be using very commonly while writing your machine learning program. That was the reason to create this short session for you, so that you can have a quick look at how it works and how it operates. I'll put this sample code also in the comment section, which you can refer to and execute it on Google Colab. Yeah. Thank you viewers. Thanks for watching.